Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to Factorio Towns, where in the previous episode we went around the entire county and basically burned every single biter base within pollution range and sometimes outside of pollution range to the ground. And we start the episode by doing a little bit more of that. There's a couple of bases that have managed to spring up once again inside the range. But yes, let's address the elephant in the room. This episode is a little bit late, let's say. Well over a month late. The series has been on a bit of a gap, I must admit, and I apologise for that. And it's not the fault of the Factorio Massa series, as many of you were thinking. Basically, the channel would have been pretty much empty if it wasn't for the Factorio Massa series. I've just been a little bit too busy to ever quite get on with starting up episodes again, and Massa was the only thing that I had time for because it was a sort of a more efficient way of recording episodes. We do a big old batch. Like a short recording session once a week that gets the entire week's episodes done. Whereas these take like a fair bit of time to do, because there's an hour of actually recording the thing, and then the 20 minutes of doing the commentary, and then there's messing about getting it to process and things. And it ends up taking a little bit of a while to get any one episode done, which is why sometimes these episodes just stop, because suddenly I don't quite have the time to get any done. But anyway, we have returned, and we'll just get right back into it. I admit that the footage for this was actually recorded a while ago. It's the voice recording that ended up being a bit more delayed. But here we are, and there's a couple more biter bases that we want to deal with, because today we are going to be building the defensive wall to the south of West Point. Basically, we're going to finally seal off the entirety of the southwest portion of the county from all biters. We're just going to put this huge wall all the way along it, and they will not be able to build any more bases in here. And we can finally get on with doing anything other than killing biters the whole time, because that's been the growing problem for so many episodes. They've just been like constantly rebuilding. Every time I take a base down, another one springs up, and I've not had any time to actually work on the factories, and it's rubbish. I want to be able to spend all my time building new towns and things. Like, there was a point where I would build a new town about every other episode, which was nice, but then slowly the biters took up more and more time, because they just got a little bit too strong, and I had to turret creep to deal with them. And yeah, now that we finally got the power suit and the flamethrower massively overpowered combo, we can very much more easily deal with them. But we want to deal with them on an even more permanent basis by putting this wall in and stopping them from even building the bases in the first place. Because we already have like more than enough alien artifacts now to do all the remaining science we need. And indeed, in like the next big update, 0.15, they're going to be just removing alien artifacts in science. Well, in fact, I was going to say in science, but no, they're removing alien artifacts entirely in the coming update, because they always end up being a bit awkward. You either struggle massively with not having enough of them, or you just end up with stupid amounts of them that you're never going to do anything with, which is now the situation that we're in. So if we just put the walls up and stop the biters ever getting in, we never need to worry about them again. We can work on the factories for all of eternity. So there I go, dealing with a couple of very large bases, the sort of things that it would have taken like half an episode to deal with using turret creep methods. Even though turret creep methods are supposed to be the cheaty, easy way of doing things, it was all I had available within the rules I'd set myself. But I've worked out exactly where I'm going to be putting the wall. I scouted out this lake a little bit and had a look at what sort of deposits were like in what locations, and I've made sure to build the wall where I've got access to this nice set of oil wells that we can make use of later. So there we go, just running along the car, building pretty much the entirety of the wall in one go there, which was nice. Now we just need to work on the actual guns so that the biters don't just tear straight through it and continue with their usual ways. So, seeing as there's been a little bit of a gap between this episode and the last, I feel like it's a good time to refresh people's memory on what I'm even doing in this series, because there's probably a lot of people who've not even seen this series before and didn't know it was a thing, and are probably wondering why episode 46 of some random series has just turned up on my channel. So the idea of Factorio Towns is that everything has to be built in lots of separate little towns rather than in one big factory. So we have a separate town for circuits and a separate one for advanced circuits, and then there's one where we make various power suit components, one where we make modules, and so on and so forth. And the rule is that I have to make things in separate areas. It's not like one item per town, but it's sort of like one category per town. Any particularly large and important item gets its own town, and then whenever there's a bunch of little fiddly things that all fall under one particular category, I lump them together. So we have one town that makes all the different power suit bits, though only the final products. It doesn't make any of the intermediate components. We also have a town that is just dedicated to circuits and nothing else, and so on and so forth. And later we'll start to have things like dedicated smelting towns, one for making copper, one for making iron, that sort of thing. Though at the moment we're still relying on the ore supplies that are actually in the towns as we build them, because the idea is that the towns are going to be built in locations that make sense. So if somebody wants to make circuits, they'd build a town on a location that has an iron deposit and a copper deposit, and they would mine the materials from that for a while. But eventually they would run out of the materials, but then it would still make sense for them to be a town because they'd have all the infrastructure set up, so they'd just start getting the materials delivered in from elsewhere. And I'm trying to get it to sort of develop in a logical way that sort of reflects kind of the Industrial Revolution, that sort of thing. So there's some limitations from this. I can't build certain things that haven't been made in a town. So that's why I don't use any laser turrets, because I haven't built a laser turret town yet. And as soon as I do, I can use them. In fact, technically, I shouldn't be able to use normal turrets, because I don't have a town that builds those. But if I didn't use normal turrets, I would die, and I would, like, as soon as the first biter attack happened, I'd be pretty much doomed. I could, well, maybe not the first one, I could fight that off with a gun, but beyond there, they would very quickly overrun things. So I've sort of cheated in that way, though we end up in this weird space where I manually craft them all, which is quite tedious at times, but I feel like it would be cheating to actually build an assembler that makes them. So as I'm building the wall, I just craft like 50 turrets to build on it, and also end up assembling all of the belts and inserters as well, because there's supposed to be a belt town, but I haven't got round to that either. This is the problem that the biters have caused. I've spent so much time fighting the biters that there's a bunch of, like, fundamental towns that I haven't built yet. Ones that I really should, that I need to build, like some of the basic building blocks of factories. It's sort of got a bit wrong, really. I was expecting to be a lot further on in terms of the towns than I ended up being. Which is sort of a problem. I sort of saw it coming of, like, because you're limiting the rate at which you build certain things and you're locking yourself out of certain technologies, there's inevitably going to be a situation where the biters overtake you, because the biters are built, well, they're designed for a different situation to that. Speaking of, there's been some recent changes in, like, in 0.15, there's some work being done by the developers on exactly how they're going to well, basically they're changing around biter combat a bit. They're trying to rebalance it so that there's a more, like, steady and sort of a synchronized progression between the biters and the player sort of thing, which will be nice, because at the moment there's a lot of technologies that are not that good, like the personal laser turrets, personal laser defense, whatever it's called, the things you put in your power suit. They're useless in the late game. They just don't kill anything. The discharge defense is a thing that barely even exists in people's minds anymore. I remember that thing exists, like, pretty much never, and when I do, I think, oh yeah, that's still terrible, why is that in the game? But apparently it's being improved so that it becomes it starts to actually make sense to use it in combat, which will be cool, and a bunch of other things like that, all sorts of changes being made that are still being worked on, and we'll see what the eventual result is when 0.15 comes out, and then there'll probably be some tweaks along that, like after that, and so on, from as the developers get feedback from us, and so on and so forth. So we're back down to the wall, continuing with our work. We had to go back to the main area to grab some extra materials for the various turrets that we're making, and now we're just running along, assembling them all. Unfortunately, I'm building things faster than I can make them, which would make sense with it all being handcrafting, so I end up having to spend a little bit of time just wandering around, slowly building things as I craft them. What I should really do is just wander off and let the things craft and come back later, but I'm worried that, like, the biters will start attacking the wall in the meantime. And indeed, already some biter bases have sprung up inside the perimeter of the wall. Once again, it's the biters making their one last-ditch effort to keep their foothold in the southwest. But I will not let them. This is finally going to stop. They're still going to be able to come in the east, but finally the west will be pretty much safe. There's also, like, the northwest is only half covered, but so far the biters have caused us very little trouble there. Most of them just stop when they get to the ammo town, which I've actually forgotten the name of. I've forgotten the name of the ammo town. I knew this day would come. I thought I could just keep all the names of the towns in my head, but I've forgotten the name of that particular one, and I can't check it on the map. So whatever it's called, the ammo town. I remember most of them, but I barely ever go over to that one, so it's easy to forget that it's up there. Is it Fortin? I think it's Fortin. There we go. I knew it had come to me eventually. But yes, we're nearly done with the wall now. Just a little bit more to extend towards the water here. I have left some gaps in the turrets in places. I was trying to speed up the process by spacing them a little bit further apart so I could go back over later and finish it off. But in the meantime, it would have it would be able to work properly as a defensive line. There's one tiny gap in the wall there though, but that I can't fill because I don't have the walls crafted, and I've got so much other stuff in the crafting queue that I have to wait a while until it's actually made. I thought I saw a bite attack there. I'm seeing things. I'm scared that they're going to run at it at any moment, even though I've recorded this already and know what happens in the episode. And I don't think there are any attacks on the wall in the end, but there will be. There has to be. I know there will be because of how many times the biters have tried to colonize the area before, how many times I've pushed them back and they've turned up again. But we've got the wall all the way to the end. This belt with all the ammo and the coal on is now going a stupid distance. And I imagine that it's going to take a long time for the ammo train to actually fully resupply it with all the stuff. We'll have to pay attention to that, because there could be a time where one part of the wall doesn't have any ammo available, which wouldn't be good. But anyway, now that we've got everything in place, we go back over the bit where we placed them a little bit more sparsely to finish filling things in. I set up the crafts for the remaining turrets we need, using up half the materials in my car to get the work finished. I don't want to have to go back to the main base yet again to get the last bits done. And slowly working on those. Eventually I decide to leave it for a moment and go deal with the biter bases that have gone inside the wall, rather than just stand around slowly waiting for everything to craft. I do a quick check around of the map there, looking to see if any other biter bases have been springing up in places, because of course at the start of the episode there were already some bases turning up near Frackham again. But at the moment things are fairly okay. We're going to be able to spend a lot less time dealing with the bases. We've sort of fixed it in two ways at once, because we're building the wall that stops them coming in the first place, but at the same time we've just got the power suit, which allows us to very quickly deal with the biters using the flamethrower anyway. So they should no longer be anything like the sort of problem they were before. I can now just run in, set it on fire, and we're done, which is fantastic. And it's like, at the end of the day, the limitation was always the rules I set myself. I could have made a power suit in minutes if I wanted to. I could have done them in any one episode just by manually crafting stuff or just plonking down some assemblers in a convenient town. But it would have been cheating, and that's the thing. I had to work within the rules that I've set myself as much as is reasonable. And so it's only now that we have our power suit town in the form of West Point that we're allowed to have a power suit and be able to deal with the biters in the much more efficient way. So there we go, the wall is completely finished. There's probably not many magazines left on the belts at this point, but we'll go back to West Point and make sure that everything is okay with the supply there, and then we can just leave. We can just go, and we don't have to worry about this area for many, many episodes to come. There should be no more trouble from the biters. Maybe occasionally one turret will blow up and we'll have to run over there and put it back in place, but it should be fine. And eventually we could even fix that if we get some if we invent bots, if we get a town that builds bots stuff, construction bots and roboports and so on, then we can set those up along the perimeter, and then the entire thing will just keep itself operational. We can have turrets being delivered in, and every time anything explodes it can just be rebuilt again, and it's going to be brilliant. And even until then, there's very much we'll have to do to keep this operational, and we can finally focus on building towns in the series called Towns. So I'm trying to sort of mitigate the supply issues with ammo by just dumping some of my own ammo supply onto the belts, and also setting up the loading chest for sort of the backup chest of ammo. I just flip that around so it starts loading onto the belts instead. And then the train turns up and pretty much fills the belts up anyway. It's going to take a while for it to be fully sorted, but now that should all be fine. Anyway, the stone deposit just outside the walls of West Point has just finished its mining, which is not good because we've been short on stone for a very long time, and now we still have one more stone mining place that we're relying on. I think I built that last episode or the episode before or something. It's not been around long, but we still have at least one place going, and it's going to be bad when that runs out as well, because we're really running low on places to go. I think I am going to have to go for the option of just spawning in a stone deposit because I messed up the map design. I've said this a million times at this point. I messed up the map spawn settings, forgetting that stone mattered more now because flooring exists, because the series has been running since just after flooring started to exist, I think. It's been a while, and I didn't realise how much more important stone was going to become. And so we've got everything half floored. I wanted to have all of the towns and all the rails floored using concrete and stone, but we don't have the materials, and we're just constantly struggling to get any supply at all, just to build like walls for defensive purposes and things. It is terrible. And yeah, we'll find one way or another to solve it. I mean, maybe if we like journey far enough, we will find some good stone deposits, but I don't know how far we really want to journey. That's not sort of the point of the series. We're supposed to have everything within a certain area. I mean, I'll continue expanding out, but everything will be like a little hop further out rather than just wandering off into the wilderness to find some new deposit out in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, we're over in Southbridge, where we're setting up a couple of miners. There's not much space left on this deposit now. We've mined through a crazy amount of it, really, probably due to the fact that we're running entirely off steam engines in this particular game, which I don't usually do. Usually I will switch to entirely solar at some point, but I felt like a bit of a difference this time, and so I've gone for steam engines. I'm still considering going to solar panels at some point, but if I was to do that, I would need to have a town that builds them. So I'd have to have a special town, probably that would make both solar panels and accumulators, but nothing else. So it'd take a bit of work, and so in the meantime I'm definitely going to continue trying to just run entirely off steam. And it shouldn't matter about the pollution now that we're building all these walls. I mean, the biters are still going to be coming in from the east for the moment, but at some point we'll set up some defences over there as well, and then the situation will be probably fine. But I am getting a little bit worried here about how much coal we have left. I think we're probably going to have to build a new coal town soon, and I'm not sure where there is a good coal deposit. I forget if there are any good ones nearby. We'll have to have a look around and see how it is. I think the spawn settings for coal were normal rather than the scarcity that I gave stone, so it should all be fine. And over in the main area of Chipton, we find that there is very little copper mining left now. We're down to 4 miners. We could increase the density of them, but that would just get it mined through quicker and have us running out of any supply of copper quicker. So we go over to Juleborough, where we've got a bit of mining going on, and we find that the mining there is also going terribly. But with this one, I decided that seeing as it's an extra extension of an outpost of a town anyway, and everything will look a little bit neater when it's gone, I decided to mine this a little bit quicker, and this will help the circuit supply to be a little bit better for the moment, and then later on it will mean that we're back down to 4 miners again. So then we go over to Redport to see what we can do there, because we do have a decently sized copper deposit here, which we could definitely make use of. I think that there may already be some copper being delivered to Chipton. I know that's being loaded onto the train already, so I think that goes to Chipton rather than anywhere else, though I have no idea if there's other places that want copper or not, but whatever, we're going to add in more miners and make sure that we're delivering like pretty much as much copper as we can from Redport to Chipton without like breaking the usual system of having the miners nicely spaced, because it just results in you running through your supply quicker and a lot more suddenly running out and having to find a new place. Either way, we're definitely going to get a copper town. I think that's going to be the next town that we build. I've already got a couple of places that look pretty good for copper towns, so we can get those set up, and they will become the copper supplies for everywhere eventually. I mean, Redport has its own supply running at the moment, which should carry on for a decent while, but at some point that'll run out as well, and all of the towns that involve copper will have to rely on supplies from the outside, which is always the ultimate idea of them anyway. So yeah, I think that'll probably be next episode's main order of business, setting up a copper town. But we'll finish off this one by trying to put in all of these furnaces, but unfortunately I've run out of materials. I'd used up all my supplies working on the wall, and I don't have any iron left to actually make any more inserters or anything, so I can just about get the furnaces running and nothing more. But that's all we have time for today, so I shall say goodbye, thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time, hopefully sooner than this episode was after the last one.